Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reisch, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased true crime channel on the internet. Let's get straight to the docket today. First, responding to some of the comments regarding yesterday's story regarding rules for thee, but not for me. Second, Krystal Lee Kenny denied parole. Remember, she was the one involved in the Patrick Frazee matter. Third, should Brandor be executed? Well, Kim Kardashian and one of his prosecutors doesn't believe so. Fourth, Eric Menendez cleared regarding that whole pot delivery thing. Bill Cosby's legal team is arguing before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court today. We'll talk about the issues. And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reisch, and this is Crime Talk. We have a busy docket today, but first, if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and please leave us a comment below about what we talk about today. Now, first on the docket, going to respond to some of the comments regarding the story that we did yesterday regarding rules for thee, but not for me. Now, as you may recall, and you can watch the video yesterday, we talked about our good mayor here in the city and county of Denver, Mayor Michael Hancock, who told everybody to stay at home and yet traveled to go see his daughter for Thanksgiving. I have no problem with people traveling. I have a problem with politicians being hypocrites. Now, a lot of people said, you only talked about Democrats, Scott. You're being biased. No, we've talked about lots of Republicans getting in trouble on this particular show. And guess what? We talk about the Republicans usually when they get indicted for corruption. We are an equal opportunity show. We don't care what political party you come from. We're going to simply explain the charges, the facts, and the law. Now, yesterday's show, these politicians need to be held accountable when they're going to be hypocritical. That's all we were saying. Sure, Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done, Gavin Newsom going to a friend's celebration at a fancy restaurant with no masks, no social distancing, and exceeding the limits of gatherings that he's imposed. We will call those politicians out. The politicians that travel to Hawaii via a lobbyist group so that they could learn about elections. That's right, an educational experience. We're going to call those people out. We don't care if they're Republicans. We don't care if they're Democrats. We're talking facts. We're talking the truth. And if you don't like it because maybe that's your side, maybe you need to do a little evaluation yourself and think, should I be more intellectually honest? Because we'll call out anybody. And we'll discuss the facts, because the facts are what they are. If you want political spin, go to some other channel. I'm sure you can find it. Next on the docket, Krystal Lee Kenny. Remember her? That's right. She was the on-again, off-again girlfriend / mistress of Patrick Frazee, who was convicted literally just about this time last year relating to the death of Kelsey Barrett, the mother of his child. Now, Krystal Lee Kenny got a smoking deal. Now, as you may recall, she admitted that on 3 occasions she was going to go over and personally kill Kelsey Barrett, but she ultimately chickened out on a number of occasions, where it is now alleged, and I guess actually proven to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt, that Patrick Frazee killed Kelsey. It has actually been proven beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously to a jury that Patrick Frazee killed Kelsey Barrett at her townhome, whereupon then Mr. Frazee called his girlfriend to drive all the way from Idaho to come and clean up and help dispose of the remains of Kelsey Barrett. Now, the district attorney who prosecuted the case, DA Dan Mays, said that he had to make a deal with the devil. Why is that? You had to have an eyewitness in this particular case. They had some charred remains from various burn pits out at the Frazee Ranch, but for the lack being too legal, they had real problems with this case, so they needed an eyewitness. The attorneys for Krystal Lee Kenny realized this and cut a smoking deal. So instead of being a co-conspirator or an accomplice to the murder of Kelsey Barrett, Krystal Lee Kenny's legal team cut a deal where she pled guilty to tampering with evidence, which here in the state of Colorado is a Class 6 felony and normally only carries 12 months to 18 months in prison plus a 1-year mandatory period of parole. As part of the plea agreement, though, they agreed to an aggravated range, so the maximum penalty could be 3 years for Krystal Lee Kenny. The judge imposed 3 years because of her conduct. Well, guess what? Little over almost a year from the date that she was sentenced, she was up for parole, but she was denied parole because of her conduct in this particular case. As a general matter of fact, unless it is a crime of violence, which this particular charge that Krystal Lee Kenny pled guilty to is not a crime of violence, so she is eligible for parole at 50% of her sentence. That gets further reduced based upon good time and earned time credit that she can get while she is in the Colorado Department of Corrections. She will be eligible again next year during her annual review, and she may just get it. She may be paroled to a halfway house or directly out into the community. And Patrick Frazee got a life sentence plus 156 years for his involvement regarding the death of Kelsey Barrett. Next on the docket, Brandon Bernard. Should he be executed on December 10th? Well, Kim Kardashian and a prosecutor who prosecuted and advocated for his death sentence now say no. Angela Moore, a former United States attorney, now argues that Bernard should be spared, citing research on teen brains that suggests Bernard, who she described as a model reformed prisoner, lacked an adult's capacity to control his impulses, consider alternative courses of actions, or anticipate the consequences of his behavior at the time of the crime. Also taking up the case for Mr. Bernard is Kim Kardashian West. That's right, the reality TV star and justice reform advocate who has successfully petitioned President Donald Trump in 2018 to commute the life sentence of Alice Marie Johnson, who was sentenced for a first-time nonviolent drug offense. Now, Kim Kardashian has stated that she says that she feels terrible that the crime was committed, and she is fighting a stay of execution doesn't take away for the sympathy that she has for the victims in this particular case, Todd and Stacey Bagley and their friends. Kim Kardashian has stated that she wants to say that a terrible crime was committed and that she, Kim Kardashian, fighting for a stay of execution does not take away from the sympathy that she has for the victims, Todd and Stacey Bagley and their families. Kim Kardashian West further states while Brandon did participate in the crime, his role was minor compared to that of the other teens involved, 2 of whom are home from prison now. She further goes on to describe the facts as she sees them as Brandon was not a part of the initial carjacking that took place and was stunned when the robbery turned into a homicide, with one of the other teens shooting both Todd and Stacey in the head. The gunman then turned to Brandon, gun still in hand, and told him to light the car Todd and Stacey lay in on fire to destroy the evidence. Brandon, according to Kardashian West, believed that both were dead, though Stacey was not, and was fearful for his own life, so he made a terrible decision to comply. The U.S. Justice Department acted on October 16th to schedule Bernard's execution, accelerating the resumption of the federal death penalty execution after a 17-year hiatus. The feds have executed 8 people, including, in September, Christopher Andre Villalba, 40, who was convicted alongside Bernard for the Bagley murders. Now, the Justice Department states that Todd Bagley had stopped to use a payphone in Killeen, Texas, when he agreed to give a ride to Villalba and 2 others. Once in the victim's car, Villalba pulled a gun and ordered the Bagleys into the trunk, then drove for several hours while stopping at ATMs to withdraw money from the couple's bank account and trying to pawn Stacey Bagley's wedding ring. While locked in the trunk, the couple spoke with their abductors about God, and they pled for their lives. Villalba eventually parked at a remote site on the Fort Hood, Texas military reservation, where an accomplice doused the car with lighter fluid as the couple sang and prayed. Villalba then shot Todd Bagley in the head, killing him instantly, and shot Stacey Bagley in the face, knocking her unconscious and leaving her to die of smoke inhalation after an accomplice set the car on fire. The murders became a federal case because they occurred on land owned by the United States military. The accomplice who lit the fire, according to the Justice Department, was Bernard. Both he and Villalba were prosecuted as adults, were convicted of 2 counts of murder, among other crimes. 3 minors who were involved were sentenced to between 20 and 35 years in prison, with only 1 still being behind bars. Villalba, 19 at the time of the killing, was the first federal inmate executed for a crime committed as a teen in more than 70 years. He was also the first black man executed by the federal authorities since Attorney General William Barr announced the plan to resume executions. Without intervention, Bernard is scheduled to die by lethal injection at the federal penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. Now, as we have stated, since the some 20 years from when Bernard was convicted, one of the prosecutors on the case believes that his life should be spared, citing that he was basically too young, his brain wasn't developed enough to make good decisions. Well, some of the jurors have also come forward and said, we don't believe that Bernard should be sentenced to death. He should remain in custody for the remainder of his life, but not sentenced to death. This here is a teachable moment. When somebody is convicted of a crime, they will first appeal to see if there were any legal errors made to the challenges in the trial. Basically, any objections that were made are potential issues. The question then becomes on appeal is, was the error so serious and so grave that it resulted in an unfair trial? Obviously, all the appeals for Mr. Bernard have been exhausted. At that point, they will then do post-conviction relief, which would basically allege under the federal system of 2255 that he had ineffective assistance of counsel. That process has taken place. After that is exhausted, then there are habeas petitions to saying, my conviction was completely unconstitutional. Those arguments have obviously been rejected by the district court, the appellate court, and I assure you, the United States Supreme Court by denying writ of certiorari. There does not appear to be any legal issues. There does not appear to be any issues regarding actual innocence in this particular case. Now it is simply a case of mitigation. The only person that can stop the execution of Mr. Bernard would be the president at this particular time. Now, Kim Kardashian West has done that and has been successful when it comes to asking for clemency as it related to other cases that she became involved in, specifically the case of Alice Marie Johnson, who was sentenced to a life sentence for drug-related offenses. Miss Kardashian West came to her aid, asked the president to pardon her. The president did not pardon her initially, but granted her clemency to basically reducing her sentence to time served. He has since pardoned her completely for her conduct. Will that happen here in this particular case? I don't know. If there's one thing we've learned with President Trump, sometimes you just never know what's going to happen. My gut feeling is I don't think this is the case that he is going to grant clemency on. Now, what is clemency? Clemency is what the executive branch, the president, or a governor in each state has. They can pardon someone. They can issue clemency by reducing the punishment that has been imposed. And that is the power that all executive branch office holders hold. So like I said, whether it's the president or the governor in each state, They can make those decisions. Nobody can second guess it. And once it's done, it's done. We'll see what happens to Mr. Bernard's case. I don't think this is the case that clemency will be forthcoming, but I have been wrong before. Before we move on with the docket, let's take a quick recess. Please, if you have not done so, go to CrimeTalkSearch.com and sign up for your background subscription service. You'll be happy that you did. When you sign up for the subscription, you can anonymously search as many names and people that you would like to do so. And literally in minutes, while you wait, millions of public records are searched and a report is generated. And that report is going to have information regarding criminal history, property records, bankruptcies, foreclosures, marital records, divorce records, and it's also going to have information related to one's social media information. How many accounts do they have? How many phone numbers are associated with this particular individual that you're searching, as well as email addresses? All the types of things that you want to know. We receive testimonials all the time where people said, I was going to get involved with this particular individual. I ran a background search at CrimeTalkSearch.com, and guess what? It came up that they had a history. It came up that I was going to do business with somebody. I checked them out, and they had fraud convictions. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com. You'll be happy you did. Next on the docket, remember Eric Menendez? He and his brother, serving a life sentence regarding the death of their parents. Well, Eric Menendez has been cleared completely off the hook regarding a package that was sent to him to his California prison address. According to the police officials at the California Department of Corrections, they have done their investigation and believe that Mr. Eric Menendez had nothing to do with it at all. When this story broke, the prison officials wanted to know if, obviously, Eric Menendez had solicited the package so that he could help distribute drugs or trade the drugs or keep them for personal use. Turns out, absolutely nothing to do with it. Needless to say, Eric Menendez had nothing to do with it. We, out of fairness, talked about the story. It turned out to be nothing. We're going to report about it because that's the right thing to do. Next on the docket, remember Bill Cosby? Remember that time when everybody loved Bill Cosby? Well, things kind of went south from there. But Bill Cosby's legal team is going to be arguing before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court today, and that two key decisions in his criminal case were wrongly decided, which resulted in an unfair trial. Now, Bill Cosby, who's 83 years old, is more than 2 years into his 3 to 10 year sentence at a prison outside of Philadelphia for being convicted regarding drugging and sexually assaulting a former employee at the Temple University. Now, since his conviction back in 2018, his attorneys have said that they were going to appeal the case and that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court granted writ of certiorari on two issues that were argued and preserved at the trial court level. One focused on prior bad acts, witnesses who testified about alleged assaults that were not part of the charges. The second issue focuses on the prior district attorneys not to charge Cosby about a decade prior. Prosecutors said that these prior bad acts, and we've talked about prior bad acts known as 404B evidence, the prosecutor said that, hey, this shows a pattern by Cosby. And Cosby's legal team has argued that the testimony was old and different from the criminal accusations and should not have been allowed in court. Now, certainly not condoning anything that Mr. Cosby did for sure, but I assure you, as a criminal defense attorney, I am not a big fan of 404B evidence. It has to be very limited and narrowly tailored for it to come in. More cases get reversed on 404B evidence when it simply was not relevant, and it is considered to be propensity evidence, right? Propensity evidence is evidence to show we believe that the defendant is a bad guy. Look at all these things that he's done in the past. He's a bad man. That is strictly prohibited under the rules, except for a very narrowly tailored exceptions to show motive, modus operandi, absence of mistake. But if it's simply there to show bad character evidence, it's impermissible, unfair trial, and In this particular case, it may get Mr. Cosby a new trial. The other issue has to do with statements made in the civil lawsuit. Cosby, in a deposition, admitted that he had procured Quaaludes for women that he wanted to have sex with. And Cosby's attorneys have argued that he was only permitted by his attorneys to answer those questions because the previous district attorney promised never to bring a criminal case based upon the allegations that were alleged and potentially admitted to in the civil case. Obviously, when the Me Too movement broke out, the new district attorney did not honor the statements of the previous district attorney. So we have two issues before the court. They'll decide. Obviously, we won't find out the ruling today, but I think they're interesting legal issues for sure. Now, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Joseph Lancaster. Congratulations, you've made it. He is a 22-year-old University of South Florida student, and he apparently caused a disturbance at a nightclub because he was upset at the bill. The bill was some $820. Well, needless to say, Lancaster argued with the security guards. Ultimately, his friends paid the tab trying to avoid a situation. But Mr. Lancaster was having none of this. Apparently, he was stumbling and slurring his words, and then he began shouting, quote, "I'm sorry none of you graduated high school, so F you." Upon being detained by police, Lancaster's belligerence only escalated. In fact, he referred to the cops as various forms of anatomy and continued to shout at the police. When the transport van arrived, Lancaster argued with the officer. Then he stated, quote, that he loves being placed in shackles. It gets me off. He asked if one of the officers could pinch his nipples. Well, needless to say, that didn't go well for Mr. Lancaster. He was charged with disorderly conduct, a misdemeanor, booked into the county jail, released on a whopping bond of $100. But Mr. Lancaster has other issues going on. Back in June, he was arrested for DUI and was on a $500 bond at the time of this particular case. One would possibly think that Mr. Lancaster may have the potential for a drinking problem. Hopefully, he will get the help he needs. Now, Mr. Lancaster, you are a dumb criminal contestant of the day for simply not letting it go. How many times have we said that? And Mr. Lancaster, you, I think, are in the lead for the dumb criminal contestant of the day. And if you are crowned the winner of the week, you will receive Crime Talk merchandise. We will send it to you at no charge to you. And you can do whatever you want with the mug and your nipples. Now, if you would like this mug, you don't have to become a dumb criminal contestant of the day. Simply go to the link below. Take you straight to Teespring, and you can order not only mugs, but t-shirts and sweatshirts and have it for you in time just for Christmas. Who doesn't want Crime Talk gear merch? That's right. For Christmas, everybody does. You can't deny it. All right. Thanks for watching. That's all we have for you today. Don't forget to tune in tonight. We go live Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We hope to see you there. And immediately after that, we will do our Patreon live show as well, where you can actually call in and speak with me about any topic you want. So make sure you become a Patreon member so you can get that link tonight for the show. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.